Here's 3 hypothetical price scenarios that I'm thinking about when it comes to Chainlink's native token called Link in an event where maybe, let's say, there is a fully fledged type of altcoin season during this cycle. We'll have to wait and see though, but even though nothing I say is financial advice, this is just what I'm thinking about right now. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen, but again, this is just what I'm thinking about. However, the first hypothetical price scenario that I'm thinking about is maybe the idea of $150, which is around a 6x from here, and the market cap at that point, considering current circulating supply, would be around 100 billion. However, why wouldn't this necessarily surprise me in an event where maybe it did happen? It's because I like the fundamentals of Chainlink, and let me explain why. I think Chainlink, most notably, is arguably known for its decentralized Oracle network. Why do I think it's pretty cool? It's because we have to take a look at what an Oracle is in this context, right? An Oracle, it's basically a data feed that brings data from off the chain. So it's called off-chain data, and it brings that data over to the blockchain. The reason why this is pretty necessary, in my opinion, is because a lot of decentralized applications out there without off-chain data, they can't really function properly. So I think this is pretty cool. And if I take a look at Chainlink, when it comes to kind of the specific sector, or should I say niche, when it comes to oracles, or again, when it comes to projects that are focused on that, I think Chainlink is arguably the most popular one. Sure, there's something like Pyth, right? But Pyth, even though it is kind of popular, it's kind of nowhere near Chainlink's size. And also I take a look at something like Flare, which has the Flare time series Oracle. That's also kind of popular too. But again, Chainlink is kind of like, just so popular within this space. It's typically what a lot of my friends think about when they think about, a project that is having an aspect of oracles. So I do like the positioning that Chainlink has. But even besides that, Chainlink has other aspects too, though. It's not only just that, right? Because we have to take a look at also, Chainlink has something called Keepers. Now, Keepers, what it does is that it basically allows developers to automate certain smart contract tasks and functions that do involve off-chain data. So that's pretty interesting to me. Also, I take a look at something called VRF when it comes to Chainlink. Now, this stands for Verifiable Random Function, and this right here is basically used for random number generation, which could have maybe use cases in, let's say, instances, like, let's say, blockchain gaming or something like that, right? So I think that's pretty cool as well, or just, let's say, gaming overall. But again, there's many examples, but I'm just going to use that one. However, when I take a look at also, Chainlink has something called Proof of Reserve. Now, Proof of Reserve services, I think, is pretty cool because this could be especially, I think, pretty cool or interesting in an event where maybe, let's say, like a stablecoin issuer, or let's say maybe in a scenario where an exchange wants to showcase the amount of assets they're actually holding. Again, Proof of Reserve services, I think that is pretty cool as well. Again, I just like Chainlink overall, but again, I'm not telling them to do anything when it comes to Chainlink. But when I take a look at, Link's popularity, right? Chainlink's native token, when I take a look at kind of the established nature that Chainlink has, maybe, hypothetically, the price of $150 wouldn't necessarily hypothetically surprise me in an event where maybe, let's say, it did happen. But even besides that, the second scenario I do want to discuss is $175, hypothetically, around a 7x from here, and market cap at that point would be nearly 120 billion if we were to consider the current circulating supply. This wouldn't necessarily surprise me because, of course, we see how BNB is doing right now, right? But actually, even back in 2021, we saw BNB exceed over $100 billion in market cap. And just to me, I think Chainlink is just kind of revolutionary in my perspective. So Link maybe at over $100 billion in market cap, it wouldn't necessarily surprise me. But again, only time will tell. Now, the third and final hypothetical price scenario I do want to discuss is maybe the idea of $200 when it comes to Link, which is around an 8x from here, market cap 135 billion, give or take at that point, or should I say around, if we were to consider the current circulating supply. However, again, why wouldn't it necessarily surprise me? It's because I take a look at the factors right now. Supposedly, there's over 600 million crypto owners currently, which is supposedly more than ever before in history, so I find that pretty interesting. I also take a look at the Bitcoin ETF, the Ethereum ETF. So to me, again, only time will tell whenever it even wants to decide to happen, if it ever even does. However, if it, let's say maybe there was like a scenario where there was like a fully fledged type of altcoin season, $200 when it comes to Link wouldn't surprise me. But again, when it comes to the timeline, it is beyond my control. Like whether or not Link decides to, kind of have that next leg up, even though it's had a pretty okay recovery, but even despite that, hypothetically, a next leg up beyond this, or let's say just the altcoin space overall, the exact timing is going to be beyond my control. So whether or not it happens, maybe, right? If it ever, next month or in November or in December, or let's say sometime around Q1 of 2026, like in January, February, March, whatever the timeline is, it's going to be beyond my control, but there's only one thing I can control, and that's myself. And what I'm doing personally is just dollar cost averaging, holding, and just waiting. I treat it like a waiting game, really. And this is what I'm doing when it comes to all the projects I'm holding. And that's pretty much it. But again, I do like what I'm seeing when it comes to Chainlink, but only time will tell. And feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I'd greatly appreciate it. It's been Lee the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.